Catalytic converter thefts continue across the valley, and they are expensive. There's a major effort to stop them.
A bill criminalizing unlawful possession of the part continues to move through the state legislature, and Fox 5's Joe Vigil has the latest.
We recently told you about thieves who went from car to car swiping catalytic converters from people in the Silverado Ranch neighborhood, up to 8 thefts in just a few hours. Now, if police would have caught the suspects under current law, it would be tough to get them for stolen converters because it would be hard to tie converters to a victim. But Senator Rochelle Wynn's converter bill makes possession a crime.
If they pulled someone over for speeding and looked in the car and during the course of like a speeding ticket saw like 8 catalytic converters in plain view, they could detain that person right then and there with a felony charge of possession of catalytic converters.
There have been changes to the bill as it makes its way through the legislature. The bill's penalty for possession has been reduced, but it's still a felony with up to 5 years in prison, depending on how many converters are discovered. The senator has been talking to key parties such as law enforcement, prosecutors, the scrap industry, and victims. And we asked if any of her colleagues by chance have been hit.
Assemblywoman Erica Mosca, who sits on the Assembly Judiciary Committee, had told me that her catalytic converter for her had been stolen, I think, twice.
About to go on the trip, and then the car made that sound that the catalytic converter was gone.
East Las Vegas Assemblymember Erica Mosca says students with the Leaders in Training nonprofit, which helps kids who are first in their family to go to college, were going on a field trip when thieves swiped a rented vehicle's converter in the parking lot where students were inside their building getting ready to leave. That was her second experience with converter thieves, who also hit her at home.
I'm very lucky that my husband has a car that I could pay for a ride share. But if it happened to somebody else, we know that they would be out of a job or they wouldn't be able to get their income for the day or their kids to school. And so that's what I really worry about.
She wants to hear more details about the bill, but she says her personal experience is helping shape her thoughts about the problem. Joe Vigil, Fox 5 News, Local, Las Vegas.
There is another hearing Monday at 8 a.m. that people can listen in or weigh in on. The bill still needs to go through committees, possibly work sessions, and votes before it makes it to the governor's desk. His spokesperson told us that they will monitor all bills and engage when they feel necessary.